Alright folks, you're looking at the results of my taking the side of this Canon Mp190 printer apart. That's because inside this area right in here, you will observe that there are at least two ink pads that are considerably loaded with ink. Another light in here somehow, and there you go. You can see in there the amount of ink that's accumulated on this printer, the padding and the time that I've used this printer. One pad is missing, and I'm not sure you can see that from where your vantage point is here. It's actually fallen down underneath the assembly. But this is causes an error in the printer and won't allow you to print. However, just today I've learned how to, by just the school of hard knocks, how to take this printer apart. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's pretty simple actually if you can survive ripping at this type of construction. There was one screw, which is right there, that actually holds the back panel in place down here, or the side of the panel I should say, at the back. And by removing that and removing the top piece, the top cover piece over the controls, which is right here, it goes up on top here, and then disassembling this framing material, which kind of is like a skirting around the printer. It's a gray type color, and then removing the side panel, you will have this view into the side of the printer. You will have to energize the printer and allow the cartridges to slide over to the left, because they would normally rest in this area and they will block your view. So once you've gotten them over there, or to automatically shift, which they would do when you refill this printer cartridges, you can unplug the printer, and that's what I just did. And now I discovered that this assembly with the ink trays, I should say, or the pads, appears that it would come out, and all that's stopping it is a little stop plastic piece down in here. There is a spring holding this in here. I just did take this out partially and became a little bit concerned that I wouldn't get it back in, but I did. But there is a spring that allows that to snap back in there like that, and you have to be careful. Plus it's got some wiring that obviously are connected with the sensors. I can't remove this thing and show you at the same time because I have to hold the camera, but I'm going to take it out and show you what I can see. It'll give you better access. Plus I'll be able to fish the little ink sponge that I tried to pull out in another time, and it just fell down below in there. So this is a much better working environment for cleaning these things. I'm going to go ahead and start on that now, but I'm going to have to put the camera aside. Okay, by releasing the spring that you see laying in there and carefully allowing it to retract, hoping that it wouldn't separate from its other end, I have left it lay in there below what would be the cartridge area for the, I should say, the filters, the ink pads. One ink pad is still laying down in there. I've got to retrieve it, but I've got this thing hanging out of position here. That actually is the container that holds these pads. I'm going to get my hands all inked up here, but that's the whole operation. What's neat about this is if I can release this from the wiring, I can clean this as an assembly, which would make it very, very easy and probably will make it a lot less messy. So I'm going to try that now. This is a real messy operation. I did manage to disconnect one hose from the one tray because it attaches to the side. The larger pad, or at least the pad that's mangled right at the moment, because I tried to pull this pad out a long time ago, it's connected through the bottom, and the warning on this is that there's several springs that are used in the operation of this pad. One of them is right there. And there's two more that are underneath these. And I'm not even sure I'm getting a good picture here for you. But let's just say there's multiple springs involved in how this assembly works. And I'm just a little bit afraid of damaging this thing where I wouldn't be able to fix it. But right now it really does need a good clean. There's a lot of ink on this thing. I probably should be wearing gloves, but I guess I'm bold or something, or just lazy. But right now I'm going to try to disconnect this black hose. They look like drain hoses because there's a drain type port on this one pad that's missing its pad. It's the base, I should call it. And I'm sure if I succeed that way without getting the springs involved in the removal, I might be able to clean this thing real easy. Okay, I actually just used some pressure and pulled the black hose off the bottom of this pad tray that doesn't have the pad in it because the pad is still resting inside my machine case. I will retrieve that. And other than that, it is intact. There's some grease on the pins on the side, obviously, to allow this thing to function. I do have some hobby type stuff I can replace that, but right now you're seeing the whole assembly for this pad area just removed. I'm going to take it to the sink and give it a good cleaning and take the pad off as well. But this is really what I would have to do. We have two of these printers, and the other printer started reading errors on this ink absorbing, what was that called?
Ink absorber.
It's called the ink absorber error, I guess. And if the error is bad, you won't be able to print. Well, that's due to this thing. So, and it's like I said, it's involved, but I'm so far confident that I can clean this. Okay, I just had to show you this because it doesn't take much water to start this ink by disappearing. You can already see that one of the pads is turning white. Of course, the other one isn't in place because I have to fish that out of the machine. But right now, I've only been running water on this thing for a couple minutes, and it's already dissolved this ink considerably and cleaned this thing up. And that's pretty much what I hope to do, because I don't want to be playing with this cartridge, because it's like I said, it's got springs in it, and it probably would be very easy to damage. And if it gets damaged, I would bet your printer won't work. But it sure makes it easier than pulling these pads out, which is what I've seen on the internet. You can just see the ink coming out of this stuff. I'm going to have to use both hands here, so I'm going to take the camera out of the action, but you get the idea of what I'm dealing with. When I started pouring water on this thing, the ink was just flowing out of here like crazy. All right, just another picture closer to some light to show you what this looks like. Like I say, these ink pad trays, they float up and down, and that's part of the printer operation. You don't want to interfere with that. Okay, I fished the missing pad out of the bottom of the case. I'm going to clean it here. This is a little bigger than the one that's in there, but it doesn't really, it's not like a sponge, it's kind of fibrous. But I started pouring water on it and the ink was coming out of it like crazy, so I thought I'd give you a sample of what I'm seeing. Definitely don't want to drop it down the drain. It's starting to turn white a little bit in the corner. It's probably dried up because it's been sitting in the bottom of the case for a while. Might have to put some soap on this thing, so I'll have to shut this camera off while I use my other hand. Well, as I started to scrub this thing with my fingers, I placed a screen upside down on here. This is kind of a thing you use in a sink in a kitchen, strainer basket, so that if I drop this thing, it's not going to sail out of sight. It's actually cleaning up pretty well now. As the longer it's wet, I'm not going to be too fussy about it because I've had this printer a long time and I'm not expecting it to last another 8 years like it's as old as now. But yeah, this thing could probably take some rough handling because it's kind of a fibrous piece of material. It's definitely can absorb, but it's not like a sponge. So it's kind of brightened up. That's probably about as much as I'll do, but I'm going to put this in its tray and then I'm going to try to reassemble this thing and see what happens. Okay, I was able to reassemble these ink pads just as they're supposed to be. Definitely very clean looking assembly now, and I will now attempt to reinstall it. My first step will be to reconnect the spring to its position on this little hook down here that you can see in this camera. Probably would prefer to use a needle nose pliers that I have to do this. So if you have some pretty decent hobby tools to attempt to do this, tweezers might work. I don't know if I would use my fingers back there, because if you let go of the spring and it slips back on you, it may end up dislodging and all that other kind of good stuff, and that could be ugly. So here goes. I did manage to reassemble this unit in here using a needle nose pliers. I got the spring back in place. That is down there. I think you can see that. I also was able to push the hoses back into place. Not really a big deal. Little needle nose on that white hose right there at my thumb helped. The other one just pushes on at the bottom. And now I just need to put this back in position. Okay, the unit is back in place. I'm thinking I might have the black hose wrong, unfortunately. It looks to be like it should be. Oh, it's just a positioning thing. I'm going to have to go. Okay, I did manage to get this back in position. Its actual operation is like that. So there has to be no pinching, or you have to get these hoses down into a kind of an insert down there where they're not going to be affected by movement, because this unit obviously gets pushed up here during operation. But if you can see, it's looking fairly clean at this point. And that's going to save a lot of headaches with regards to the printing operation. There is a canister back in here that almost appears to be a waste receptacle of some kind that these hoses are attached to. I don't know how that operates, but that's not important for this repair operation. So At this point, I'm done working on the interior of this printer. Oh, by the way, as I reassemble this side panel, there's 1 foot down there that has a mounting clip that slides in there. There's actually 2 screws involved. This one up here has to be loosened in order to allow this thing to be separated from the case. And other than that, that's really about it. I'm putting that back on like that. I'm almost thinking that the trim that goes around here, this, may not even have had to been removed.